This is one of those episodes that the viewership asked for. How much horsepower does a water pump kill? That and a whole lot more this time on Engine Masters. This is Engine Masters presented by AMSOIL, where we give you the horsepower tests that you're looking for. This time, literally. See, I actually read nearly all of the comments on all of our videos, and one of the things I saw pervasively is people want to know how much horsepower is killed by the accessory drive on the front of an engine, and specifically people asked about the water pump. And so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to start off with an electric water pump that has no parasitic loss to the engine whatsoever, and then we're going to start killing power. First, we're going to install a Wyand aluminum high-performance mechanical pump, and it's going to have a performance pulley ratio that spins the water pump more slowly in an attempt to save horsepower. We'll find out. And then we're going to go to a restrictor for the thermostat to see if there's a power difference if you do or don't have a thermostat restricting the water outlet on your engine. After that, we are going to go to the high flow water pump pulley ratio, which spins the water pump even faster. Then we're going to put on an alternator and load that thing up and find out how much power it kills. And finally, we're going to look at the power difference between coolant temperature that is low or way too hot, like 200 degrees. Now let's look at our horsepower victim today. This thing is sort of like a fashion model on the runway because it's showing you the latest in all black accessories. Actually, I've noticed the aftermarket is going to black everywhere that I look. It's like black is the new shiny. And so the whole top end here is like murdered out. Let's start up top with that 780 CFM vacuum secondary carburetor from QFT in tuxedo black. The intake manifold is a Wyand Speed Warrior high-rise dual plane factory powder coated black. Then there's the Mr. Gasket fabricated aluminum sheet metal valve covers, once again in lovely black. Even the MSD distributor in the back, you can now get those completely with a black housing, not just the polished billet ones anymore, and a black cap, and of course the Street Fire wires, once again, black. And so is this water pump up front. That thing is a budget-oriented electric pump that you can get for several different applications from a new company called Frostbite. It's a division of Holley Performance. They make radiators, and now they've got those electric water pumps too. The engine itself is a small block Chevrolet, 383 cubic inches. The bottom end is a Blueprint Engines crate motor. The top end we've changed around a little bit from that configuration. It has Blueprint Engines heads on it. They're a 210cc inlet runner, CNC ported. The camshaft is a Comp Cam's XE276HR hydraulic roller. This thing has like 10-to-1 compression, 9.8-to-1, and it's gonna make 470 horsepower, 470 pound-feet. It's actually a really cool combo if you've got like a Camaro, Chevelle, 3rd gen, something like that, or even a pickup truck. It's pretty typical motor, and it's a good performer if you just wanted to duplicate this combo. But we're here to try and kill power with it. And that's what we're gonna do as we roll it in the cell. I'm gonna show the oil we're gonna use. We're gonna baseline it with no parasitic loss with that electric pump, and then we will start eroding the power curve on our 383. Man, on this test, I really think we're gonna be hunting for like 1 and 2 horsepower here and there. And so we're really gonna work hard to keep our dyno testing consistent. You'll see us trying to stabilize the coolant temperature, and the other thing is oil temperature, because cold oil tends to not make as much power as hot oil. And that's also one of the reasons why we don't run schlocky oil, because we're looking for that consistency. We've always run the AMSOIL Premium Protection 1040 in this engine, and we're gonna do it again. You've seen this thing before. Remember when we did the episode of the Chevy 383 versus the Mopar 383? And one time we tested dual quads versus 3 carbs on it. Now it's back for its glorious return. Okay, are you guys ready for the ultimate average 383 Chevy?
Ultimate average?
It is the ultimate average motor. I think on this test, when we do the mechanical pumps, we're gonna be looking at power draw of, what's your guess?
Oh, I don't know, I'd say 6 to 8 horsepower.
With a water pump, 6, 8, yeah.
That's all it would be for me as a guess. We hardly ever run a complete drive system on something.
I think it could be little enough that we need to do a 3-pull average this time.
Yep.
So what we're gonna do is pull each combination 3 times. Even here on the baseline, I think we've got to do that in order to be fair with what we do in the later steps. So let's run it 3 times, and then we're gonna average the peak power numbers just to even it out, level playing field. And of course, we got to make sure the water temperature and oil temperature is exactly the same in every combination. Okay, ready for the baseline with the electric water pump. I said we were going to average 3 runs. We're actually going to do 4. Okay, we have our baseline now. We ended up running 4 runs to average instead of just 3, and we're averaging it to a whole bunch of decimal points. So horsepower, 471.6 at 5,700, and pound-feet, 467.5 at 4,900. This thing makes actually a pretty nice torque curve.
Really
That's a
flat
good
torque
motor.
curve.
Okay, let's go see if we can start killing power. I want to start with like the least power kill and move our way up towards what we think will be the most power kill. All right, so step 1, we're going to go add a mechanical water pump with a performance drive ratio.
All right, so that's the old electric water pump out, mechanical water pump going on. We'll see how much horsepower it takes. So if you'll notice, I've got a smaller pulley down here at the crankshaft and a bigger one at the water pump. That slows the water pump down. It's called a performance ratio because less water pump speed means less drag. This is about 0.89 to 1. So at 6,000 RPM at the crankshaft, we're only at 53.75 at the water pump. So it's turning a little less than 1 to 1. That should save just a little bit of horsepower compared to turning the water pump faster or at the same speed as the crankshaft.
Okay, mechanical pump performance ratio. What's your guys' guess?
I don't know.
It's going to kill nothing that we could not call a testing variance, in my opinion.
I don't think it's going to be much.
Yeah, less than 1. Let's
Really?
find out.
That little?
Yes.
At peak? Mm-hmm. It might be. I'd say maybe 4 or 5.
I think we're going to look at the number and go, even averaging 4 runs, it's not going to make a difference.
Well, we're about to find out.
Torque, 468.2. No real change there. All right, give me the averages and we'll find out what it is, but it's definitely down a couple numbers. So, as an average across 4 runs, it made 467.1 pound-feet of torque, 467.9 horsepower. That actually killed 3.7 horsepower.
Oh,
More than I thought.
Yeah, that seems like a reasonable amount. I mean, it's not going to be 20. It's not going to be 0.
Yeah, but the question is,
4 horsepower or so, 3.7.
apply it to your life, though.
You won't feel it.
No, there's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
So next, do you want to go out there and change to the non-performance pulley ratio or put the outlets restrictor?
I'd kind of like to see the restrictor with this drive and then with the other drive and see
Right.
what difference it makes.
What we're gonna do now is add this restrictor on the outlet. This is where the water comes out of the engine and into the radiator in a car. On the dyno, we normally run no thermostat at all, but we're gonna drop that in there to mimic a thermostat because that is gonna create more of a restriction in the water flow, and if the pump is working against a head pressure, theoretically, it's gonna eat more power than it does without a thermostat. So essentially, this test is gonna tell you if you lose horsepower just by adding the restriction of a thermostat in your intake manifold.
I think that's a one-man job, Freiberger. Okay, I think that's good. I think we'll lose a little more power.
It's a good thing we're averaging 4 because that was down everywhere.
So our new peaks On an average of 4 runs, 467.4 horsepower, 465.2 pound-feet of torque. I mean,
that's a little bit of difference.
It's a little bit of difference. It's minus half a horsepower, and oddly enough, it's minus 1.9 pound-feet. I would have thought that the data point at the higher RPM, which would be horsepower, would make a bigger deal. But I mean, we're dealing with
even averaging
specs.
all these, because we knew going in that we needed to average 3 or 4 tests because we were talking onesies and twosies.
So far from the electric water pump to now, we're talking less than 5 horsepower. So I think we need to go throw on the overdrive pulleys. Right now we're underdriving the water pump. We need to overdrive it and see if that makes a difference.
Steve did such a good job changing the thermostat. I think he should change the pulleys.
I'll change the pulleys if you drain the block. How about that?
Why would you drain the block to change pulleys?
Oh, we're not taking the water pump off, are we?
No. So we'll watch from here.
Steve,
go ahead.
I can do that.
You've got a deal.
Oh, man, you got me again. Okay, you can see this is a much larger pulley on the crankshaft. We're going to have a corresponding smaller pulley on the water pump. Now what this is going to do is speed up the water pump drive, and we're going to be running this at about 28% overdrive. So at 6,000 RPM crank speed, we're going to be seeing about 7,700 RPM at the water pump. Now that's a lot closer to an OEM ratio, and it's going to help engine cooling. So in the real world, this is probably what I'd go with.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this is going to kill more power.
I think you're right.
Am I clairvoyant?
No.
No?
Okay, here we go.
Okay, one more pull with this combo. So our average numbers with the more high cooling ratio, 463.5 pound-feet of torque, 465.9 horsepower. So once again, we're just a tiny bit down from the electric water pump until the fast drive ratio on the mechanical water pump. It's 5 horsepower with the restrictor. So a thermostat and a mechanical pump costs you 5 horsepower at this RPM versus an electric pump.
But we have more stuff to put on.
We have to go put the alternator on there.
Yeah, see what that does.
Okay. Alternator time.
Are you good at alternators, Steve?
Yeah. If you drain the coolant, I'll get the alternator.
Perfect. I wouldn't want you playing with electricity and water.
What we're planning to install here is a Mr. Gasket 150 amp alternator. We're gonna hook it up to try and put a load on it during the test as well. Make something happen to kill some power here. All right, perfect. Then this attaches to that. Super simple, clean, and good. So another thing you have to remember is when you change the crank pulley, you affect the speed of all of the accessories, not just the water pump. And because we've got the larger one here, it's gonna be spinning that alternator faster than it would with the other combination. Should we just put a load on it now? It's a 1-wire alternator, so we can just do power and ground. And we're gonna hook it up to a dead battery and then to an inverter and a fan. We could plug something else in too. You got your hairdryer with you? Okay, now we've got an alternator on the thing, and the alternator has a little bit of a load on it, and it's also powering an Aeromotive A1000 fuel pump, which is at EFI fuel pressure right now. It's like 58, 60 PSI. And we're gonna find out how much power that kills. This is our last pull. So the alternator ends up killing more power under a load than anything we've tested so far.
It also turns the fastest compared to everything else we've done.
Yeah, this is what I was thinking. is that the alternator, it's not like the water pump where the load increases as the RPM go up. That draw on the alternator is there even at low RPM, and so it's killing roughly the same amount of power throughout the curve instead of the water pump, which only affects the very top.
And again, it's not a huge amount, but it all adds up.
Well, yeah, the difference between our first test and everything that we've added now, the restrictor, the alternator, the electrical load, the mechanical water pump, the pulleys, it's 11.8 horsepower overall and 6.5 pound-feet overall.
Almost half of it came from the alternator alone, right?
Yes.
Wow. So what if you had even more load on the alternator, like an electric fan, electric water pump, and everything powered right up?
Definitely be more.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell when you hook up a battery that has a big load and the engine idle speed slows down because the alternator is really grunting against it.
Yeah.
I think the alternator is a bigger difference than anything else. But then, you know, circle track guys run no alternator.
Why don't they run alternators?
They kill power. I think more and more guys know, and they are running alternators these days. But I think we should show everybody why most of this makes no difference whatsoever. Everything that we did is going to contribute to better cooling, and having cool water temperature is way more important than any of this little itty-bitty stuff we've been messing with.
Run to run, absolutely.
We're gonna run it up to 200, which is what you'd see in a car, find out how much that kills. At this point, we can throw away the 4-run average and just do one dyno pull because the coolant temperature is 200 degrees, and that's gonna make a big difference. All throughout the episode, we were starting runs at 132 degrees, and now, actually 206, 205, 204.
Here we go.
How hideous was it, Steve?
The one thing I guarantee is that this is the biggest change we've made.
Yes.
Yes.
This will be the biggest thing that's happened the entire episode. So torque, 453.3 horsepower, 449.7. So that's down 10. That's not that big of a deal. I thought it was going to be worse. Let's look at the curve, though. Overlay it.
You want to overlay it with...
Overlay it with the...
Best run.
With E, yeah. So that's just a comparison of temperature.
That'd make it an A/B
Okay,
test.
there you go. I thought it would be a bigger difference than that. What we're looking at here is that the red line represents running it with 132 degrees of coolant temperature. The black line is 200 degrees, and I really thought that it was going to be down 15 to 20 instead of 10.
I actually thought we'd see a bigger change down low and it kind of get a little closer up top. But
Why does it make less power?
the air temperature is not colder at wide open on a cold motor versus a hot motor. And when you're talking airspeed that fast and you've only got this much distance, it does not have time to cool it.
So hotter coolant temperature does not necessarily mean hotter inlet tract temperature.
Agreed.
Unless, of course, you're in a car under a hood and it's affecting the ambient air, inlet temperature.
Yes.
But you're saying in the dyno in this situation where the room's 67, 70 degrees,
Yeah, but in the combustion
regardless.
chamber, you're starting off at a higher temperature, so your delta is going to be lower on your expansion ratio.
You think an extra 70 degrees is
100
actually
degrees,
significant?
yeah. 100 degrees would be 5%. We saw maybe about 3% change in power.
It doesn't surprise me to see about 1 horsepower for every 10 degrees.
1 horsepower per 10 degrees.
Approximately, yeah.
We just picked it up 70 degrees and lost 10, so okay.
Close.
Okay, well, that was pretty interesting. I think my takeaway is that accessories and stuff don't kill enough power to worry about not running them.
Well, they're often a necessity. You pretty much have to run it, and you're compromising your whole drivability equation by trying to do something about saving power that's not really that big of a deal.
I'm probably the only guy here who's tried to drive 200 miles with no alternator, and it's no fun.
Yeah, I know.
It's a lot of batteries.
A lot of batteries.
Yeah, a lot of batteries.
Okay, let's go clean this thing off the dyno and get out of here.
That was a lot of testing.
You know what's one of the greatest discoveries of this episode?
I want to hear it.
This alternator bracket.
I know. I bolted it on. I was just thinking the same thing. It's so tight and compact.
I know. That's actually a Summit brand alternator bracket right there. And it's like cheap, super simple, works for the long water pump design. It's actually pretty cool. I like little things like that. But
And it looks good.
aside from that, I think we pretty much confirmed what we already suspected.
What's that?
You might as well run a mechanical water pump because it's really not going to make squat bit of difference.
I don't care about that little bit of horsepower. What I want is capability or capacity and reliability on the road.
Yeah.
Because if something in the front of the engine goes bad, the rest of the engine's gonna follow pretty quickly behind.
And you've lived that.
I know, more than once.
But you know what? I still like the electric water pump for race cars. And the big deal there is you can cool the engine and everything without having the engine running, because you can run water through it and you can run electric fans on your radiator, and that's pretty good. But it then requires an even more killer charging system. But
Right.
this alternator is 150 amp. Did
I
you know that?
That's killer.
I swagged that off Mr. Gasket, and I'm keeping it because it's good.
I remember when the 65 amp was like the big dog.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
That was before you had to run all this electric stuff. But I think the other takeaway from this is no matter what engine you have, what you learned here in this episode applies. A mechanical water pump and an alternator does not kill enough horsepower to make it worth your while to actually change it. But you know you're always gonna run into that guy who says, oh, you gotta have the underdrive water pump pulley.
Not on the street, though.
No, absolutely not. You know what? Myth busting. It's what we love to do here on Engine Masters, presented by AMSOIL.
That idle is like listening to waves hit the beach. It makes me want to go to sleep. Yeah, just
Turn off the fan, go stand in the cell, you'll go to sleep.
I only want to go for a little while.
No dirt nap.
Yeah.